Hi, this is Shane Groves, and this is...
My name is Dillon Smith.
How old are you?
19 years old.
And today's date is August 14th, 2016. We're at the corner of Yonge and Dundas, which is probably not his permanent panning spot, but let's get to know this gentleman. Where are you from?
Born in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Grew up a lot of my life in Cambridge, Ontario. I was on the street before when I was about 16, 17. Cleaned up my act for a woman, pursued a career in the kitchen industry, which is what took me to Toronto. I spent the last year working in casual fine dining restaurants, including 2 of the top 10 Italian restaurants in the city. However, unfortunately, I have some mental health problems, especially anxiety, and I drink way too much. That my last 2 jobs I had mental breakdowns in the middle of the kitchen and was seen as a liability because they didn't want essentially a loose cannon in their kitchen. So now I'm taking a break, going back to what I used to do, being on the streets, panning, busking, I'm actually writing my own music now, and I'm trying to survive and live my life and take care of myself.
And you play an instrument, I see, which is a guitar.
Yeah.
Which is that thing right there.
That was what I bought with my last paycheck from Pia Allegro Ristorante in Etobicoke, because I just wanted to focus on the positivity and figure out my head before I go back to work. So this is what I do. I sleep on cardboard beds wherever I can find a spot.
You don't use any shelters at all?
I used to a lot of times, but a lot of the same reasons I couldn't, I kept getting fired. Same reasons I keep getting bounced from another shelter to another shelter.
Or you weren't behaving, or is it because of the drugs and alcohol and bad people that were around?
A bit of the alcohol and a lot of the alcohol, and a lot of just my emotional and mental problems. The second I started to get overwhelmed and I started to freak out, no one really knows how to calm me down and deal with me, and they usually just end up discharging me.
Are you on medication?
Yes. I stopped taking it a while ago. It doesn't interact well with alcohol, and it makes it a lot easier to overdose.
And what medication is that? What's the name?
Seroquel, which is it's a very standard SSRI, serotonin supply regulation inhibitor. It's just a general antipsychotic.
And how often do you drink? And how much do you drink?
Every single day, about a 6-pack or a Mickey a day.
Okay, and what's the average that you usually make on a day for panning?
30, 40 bucks at the most. More average is about 20, 25. Me and my friends are actually trying to start a busking band, so we make more when we go out and do that. We'll go out together, write some music together, play some covers together, and basically just sing about homelessness and alcoholism, because we all have walked the same walk, and our main goal with our music is to make some money, but also to open people's eyes.
Does the music playing keep you away from the thought of doing drugs and alcohol, or does it remind you of it because you're singing about it?
Well, especially when I was younger and I last was on the streets, I did a lot worse. I started to slip back, like I did a lot of meth when I was about 17. I'm staying away from that completely. I slipped a couple times about a month ago, but now yes, I still drink quite a bit, but it's definitely helped me keeping away from the rest of it, and it's definitely helping me try to stay away from the booze. Although I am somewhat physically dependent, and my hands do start to shake when I go without. But it's a step in the right direction, I guess.
Okay, and what assistance are you on? Welfare, disability, unemployment insurance?
I was on welfare. I have to re-file because I went back to my hometown of Cambridge. So when I came back to Toronto, I have to file to be on Toronto's welfare.
And do you have all your ID?
No, I do not. It got stolen from me when I passed out drunk in the Monotomy 2 weeks ago. So that's going to slow down the process. I'm also filing for EI because I do have enough hours.
Sorry, just looking at his feet. So on an average, do you change clothes often, or do you still wear the same clothes?
I try to, every few days, every couple of days, shower as much as I can. There's a pool downtown in the Esplanade where I can go in and use their showers. But clothing's scarce, and I need to use up, I need to make my resources last. So generally twice a week, wash them in a fountain or something, and then let them dry, and then save them like a hard case. So I've got a spare pair of jeans and a few shirts and some underwear in here. I always try and change my underwear and my socks at least.
And I've noticed your shoes are pretty bad. And how long have you had these shoes?
Well, actually about a year and a half. They were starting to be worn down before I went back on the streets, and I was camping out for a couple months when I went back to Cambridge. I was working at the Cambridge Mill, which is the best restaurant there in the city, and living on a trail called the Paris Trail. And that really didn't help, having to walk through a trail in some rainstorms or whatnot. The soles are actually really fucked. More than anything, they're affecting my posturing. I have really bad knees and ankles because of these shoes. But
so as you know, that there are places where you could possibly try to get a pair of shoes for free, but because you're not in the shelter system, they don't give you anything for free because you're not registered in the shelter system, correct?
Exactly. The most I can do is I can trade them a pair of shoes. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. God bless. But the problem with that is that they won't let me trade these shoes.
Well, it's because they don't want those crappy ones.
That, and because I have athlete's foot. So they can't give these to another resident or another person and give them athlete's foot. So I'm stuck with these contaminated shoes. I mean, I put on cream on my feet twice a day, try and fight the infection. But again, when you're sitting in the same shoes, it makes that even more difficult. But I do what I have to.
And how long have you been back in Toronto? Or where were you before you came back?
I was in Cambridge for a little while, sleeping on the Paris Trail in a tent and working at the Cambridge Mill. When I got fired from there because I had a mental breakdown, I went back to Toronto and been here for about a little under a month.
So you've never used any resources at all?
I have quite a bit. I've stayed at every single youth shelter in the city multiple times. I've been in and out of the shelter system since I was 15 and had to actually lie about my age to get into them. And
have you had stuff stolen or missing from your possessions?
When I first moved to Toronto and I was working, and I was just staying in the shelters until I found a place. In the 2 months I was working, I had 3 phones stolen from me. Every single time I started to go up and get a new one because my boss didn't get a hold of me, and I needed to contact my boss if I was running late. And the problem with that is that every single time I had to get another phone from another provider, put myself in a more debt, and I actually have over $2,000 worth of debt just simply because of cell phones.
Okay, now do you have an email that you can have in contact with? And
that's all I have right now. Unfortunately, a lot of employers don't like to email you, but I do occasionally get an email here and there. I have an interview in about a week with Jack Casters here. So it's a step forward.
Have you done any job searching?
Yeah, so I try to as much as I can. Generally when things slow down in terms of the banning area, I'll try and hit the library before it closes. Shoot out some resumes. I owe the library some money though, so they'll only give me a guest pass for half an hour. So that limits what I can do. But I check my email every day at least, and shoot off a few DG applications, and I do what I can. I still have to go out and make my dollar, but I take care of myself as much as I can. The one thing I will say is that the good people of Toronto have been really good to me. I've never really gone too hungry on these streets, and if I do, I would always just make signs to spare food. And I will say that the one reason I actually look somewhat healthy right now is because of the good people of Toronto.
And how long have you been off and on the streets, or in general, like how long have you been?
I've been transient since I was 14, in and out of various families and friends' homes. But my first time getting kicked out, I was 14 years old, and it was the middle of December. And buddies huddling over a campfire in a lean-to that I built in a little foresty/park that was behind my high school called Churchill Park at the corner of Christopher and Champlain in Cambridge. That lean-to is actually still there to this day and is a popular drinking spot for when kids will skip and go get drunk.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, if somebody saw this video and wanted to contact you to see what they can do to try to help, are you willing to give them your email address?
I would love nothing more than that. It's dy.smith666@gmail.com.
And your name again?
Dillon Smith.
Okay, and
Facebook is Dillon Robert Smith.
can you spell that all out for me?
DYLAN ROBERTSMITH.
Okay. And what is it that you'd like to see more done with the organizations here in Toronto?
Beating the stigma. There's a lot of people, you know, just assume, like, there's been times where I bummed smoke off someone and I didn't have a lighter, so I'd have to try and bum a lighter. You wouldn't believe the amount of people, but I try not be sitting here trying to ask for a lighter, they'd be like, oh, sorry, I don't even have change, I don't have any change. I'm not asking you for change, I'm asking for a lighter. There's a lot of people who are very, very ignorant, who don't even look at you, don't even look at your sign, completely ignore you, and often look down at you like you're scum, and it actually like really hurts your self-confidence when you're just trying to get by when this is a bump in the road. And I would just like to see more beating the stigma, because everyone who's on the streets is on the streets for a reason. Whether they're a heroin junkie, whether they're someone who got kicked out by their wife, whether they're a broke alcoholic man in his 40s, Johnny High, who no showed on his job, or whoever you are, whatever mistakes you made in your life, you're here for a reason, and that doesn't make you any less of a person. And I think people need to beat the stigma of you're just some dirty homeless bum. You know, we're people too, and we're here for a reason, and this isn't the end of the road for us.
So you don't do any type of programs like NA or AA? Or does that not even help because of the disability that you have with the medication?
It's a little bit of both. I tried, and it did help at first, but the main thing was it was an anxiety thing. If I did slip once, I would be too ashamed to go back. And it was just a lot of and a lot of it too is it's really depressing, and to just be sitting around listening to a bunch of people talk about how much they used to drink, and all it makes me want to do is just go back out and drink and forget a lot of the things that I put my ex through. Spent a year and a half trying to help me, and in the end I really hurt her. And a lot of reasons why I'm homeless right now and why I just sit in the same spot and drink myself to death is because of the fact that I hate myself and want to quit. This amazing woman who genuinely just wanted to help me through.
Okay, do you have any type of good advice for other future people that are not homeless, and also for those who are homeless? Any good advice at all?
Whatever your personal battles are, don't give up. Don't stop trucking. No matter what happens, still get up in the morning and live to fight another day and do what you have to do. Provide for yourself. Never be ashamed for whatever that may be. If you're homeless and you have to pan, you know, I'm not saying get comfortable into the cycle of just panning every day, but don't be ashamed that you have to do it. Provide for yourself. Take care of yourself. For those who aren't, you know, food, things like, yeah, okay, you want to give them your leftovers, great. You know, food and money help and all, but there's a lot of things that aren't provided for. You know, one thing that I found really, really hard to find on the streets, find resources for, is blankets and pillows. So I mean, I'm sure you've got 40 blankets sitting in your linen closet right now. If you see that poor guy on the streets is probably sleeping in a park tonight, you know, next time you open your closet, think about how much extra blankets you're not even using and hand a couple out on the streets. You got an extra pair of shoes that you haven't worn in years, find someone on the streets whose feet look like they fit. Clothes, they have no problem getting, but blankets, pillows, sleeping mats, sunglasses, sunscreen. These are the things that really help, and especially winter supplies. Because some guys, I mean, they do okay in the summer, but I know people who have actually died on these streets before. You know, Toronto's great. There's a lot of shelters. In other cities, there's not. And KW, there's only 2 men's shelters. And I know by people who have actually died of frostbite and stuff. And winter gear, shoes, blankets, pillows. These are the things that will really help more than anything.
Okay, now the thing is, besides shelter systems, if they are considered to be too full, do you think it's fair for the government to open up out of the cold programs, or do you think the churches and other type of religious organizations should put a little bit more of a foot forward and actually open their doors and bed some people in their churches?
Well, I know from personal experience that a lot of times the churches do in some cities, and others they don't. Yes, the government definitely needs to put their foot forward a bit more, but I think it starts with the community. And I think it's the churches, it's the good people at Toronto, the public service work, people who work in public service, people who walk by the homeless people every day and just don't even do anything. You know, if you don't feel comfortable giving them money because you think they're just going to go out and spend it on drugs or booze, then volunteer at your local soup kitchen, get some people together and try and get an out of the cold program started. You know, in your own garages or your own basements. Do whatever you have, figure something out, because there's way too many people on these streets, and that's the end of the line. And I think everyone needs to take the initiative and figure out what the hell they can do.
Okay, are you choosing to be on the streets, or is it because of the way that the community is treating you, that where you're not being trusted to be put into a home for rent, and they think that like, have you had a hard time trying to find a place to live?
Even when I was working, and I was when I first moved to Toronto back in August 2015, it took me till January, from August 26th to January 15th. I had my first and last saved up before I even came to Toronto, and I had no access to it. It wasn't like I spent it and then I had to save it up again. My girlfriend at the time's mom was holding on to it for me, and it took me 4 months just to find a place. No place would actually let me sign a lease. I had to buckle down and sublet, and I actually got screwed over by 2 people who would sublet me a bachelor when they were moving out instead of signing back over the lease back over the place. And I had so much trouble because no one wanted to trust the 19-year-old homeless kid. I would go to them and say, listen, I'm in a shelter. I've been working for the last few months, and before this place I was working back home down in Cambridge at these restaurants. I have a career, I have something I follow, I have this much income, and I had more than enough to provide for a place. But I actually got screwed over for $2,000 by a lady in Parkdale, and since then I've been back in the shelter system for a while, and then now I'm back fully on the streets because I'm honestly sick of the shelters and the people I'm surrounded by. And all I really want is to be able to find another apartment and just provide for myself again.
So the reason why you can't get anywhere is because you have no ID right now because it got stolen, correct?
That's my one main barrier right now, yes. But even when I had my ID, even when I had my job and I had my first and last, it was so hard just to take the step from shelter to apartment.
Or not just an apartment, but I'm in a rooming house through John Howard and Streets to Homes, and I fought them for almost 4.5 months to get me a place.
Really?
And
I've put in a couple of transitional housing applications, but every single transitional housing program tells me what a long waiting list there is. The only ones without long waiting lists are the ones that are serving the minorities, the teenage moms, and the LGBTQ youth. And while I'm not saying those people don't need resources as well, I mean, it's getting to a point where if you are a straight white male, there's not a lot of resources apart from the basic, very, 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 very basics.
And are you at the age where you're too young to be on disability, or you trying to get on welfare before you can apply for disability with all your ID?
Well, I was on welfare, and even then I was told I was too young for disability, and I don't really want to go on disability because I've heard that, because I do want to go back to work, and one thing I've been told is that once you're on disability, it's very, very hard to get off and go back to work if you are able to.
Okay.
However, disability would make my life a bit easier because it is more money.
And because you're not on the welfare system in Toronto, do they have an old file of you of being on welfare?
They do have an old file, so it should be too hard, but they're still going to need my ID, which I don't have.
Which they can afford to buy for you.
Yes.
Or the Evergreen up here on the Yonge Street before Gerrard has a ID clinic on Wednesdays, I believe it is.
Yes,
and they can help you. They can help you apply for your health card, social insurance, and birth certificate.
So that's exactly what I did last week. They told me it'll probably take about 4 to 6 weeks before I get my ID. However,
So you're stuck on the streets until then.
Basically, yeah. So I have a letter that I have to take to welfare saying like he has filed that this is who he says he is. We at Evergreen have been working with Dillon on and off for the past few months. We were working with him at a point when he did have his ID. He is who he says he is. Our employment counselors have helped him find employment in the past, etc., etc. But in the meantime, this is kind of where I'm at.
So you can't even get $265 for street allowance because you're not on welfare.
Nope.
So you are actually struggling on the street, and people have to understand the situation of why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you even had street allowance, which is $265 a month while you're couch surfing or even in shelter systems, that's still not enough to save up to get a place to live until you find a rental form and then fill out a form to get the first and last month's rent.
And that's just it. And welfare's actually stopped covering last month's rent.
That's right. It's now a housing stabilization worker, which pays for the last month's rent, but it's only eligible every 2 years based on circumstances and emergencies. So you're stuck.
Basically.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and
Thank you.
not a problem. What was your name again?
Dillon Smith.
And this is Shane Groves. Thank you very much for watching the video, and go to GoFundMe for Shoes for Homelessness. It's a fundraiser that I raised so that we can try to get some shoes for the homeless people, because it'd be nice that they can actually walk like everybody else walks in a mile in their shoes. So let's feel what they feel with having no shoes, or shoes that are uncomfortable and not fit to walk in. And let's work together. All right, peace out.